The story begins with what seems to be a battle between the saviors and a large metaphysical, resembling a dragon-type creature. As the reserves suffer heavy damage, we see the main protagonist Moroha, who gets a glimpse of two girls in his past life and shouts that he will defeat anyone who takes something dear from him. Moroha begins to write a spell to defeat the dragon as the other saviors support him. After completing the spell, Moroha attacks the dragon head-on with his sword, resulting in a big explosion with emerging light. The scene then switches to 6 months prior to the event, beginning at the academy where its principal is giving a speech to these students who are chosen to be saviors, and they have all the memories of their past life to defeat and protect the world from metaphysical. During the speech, Moroha falls asleep and dreams of his past life with a girl, in which he fights a big battle, and after the battle, he and the girl are about to kiss. Suddenly, he wakes up to see Satsuki in front of him who headbutts him, causing him to fall down and scolds him to sleep in the class. When he becomes fully aware, he notices that Satsuki is the girl from his dream. He calls her by her old name Sarasha, as she responds with Flaga as Moroha's old name, and instantly jumps in joy calling him her brother, but he quickly informs her that he has little memory of his past life, and that the name simply popped up in his mind. She quickly suggests headbutting him again to regain his memories, but a noise quickly catches their attention and turns around to see a girl lying down on the floor. Moroha approaches her, to which she mutters out Shusora, instantly kissing him, prompting Satsuki to break it up in sheer jealousy and lash out on Shizuno, who then says she had the wrong person and says that she was half asleep. With each of these remarks, Satsuki asks if she kisses anyone in this state. Satsuki complains about how she has never done such a thing in her present life, and on how Shizuno stole her turn. When Moroha attempts to calm down the situation, Shizuno asks him what he thought of her lips, but Moroha is left uncomfortable by the question and tells her she is devaluing women, to which she responds to him being interesting. Seen flustered and bothered, Satsuki rants out on how Moroha doesn't even remember her and calls him names, before running out crying. Later on in a classroom, the homeroom teacher is about to call out attendance, but Satsuki calls herself out and introduces herself, but is met with negative remarks as to why people should follow her, leaving herself embarrassed. Moroha ends the commotion by calling out as to how they should finish attendance before time runs out, in terms of backing up Satsuki. As the teacher then calls out the name Shizuno Yoshibara, the girl they both met in the auditorium is seen to be asleep again. As the day continues, Satsuki is seen in the girls' locker room, where she is murmuring about Moroha to herself. Shortly before heading to a coliseum, Moroha is once again approached by Satsuki, who quickly embraces him and asks him if they want to go on a date after school. But he tries to avoid by telling her that he plans to get a job, but she informs him that the school doesn't allow it. Arriving at the coliseum with Shizuno and other students, their instructor informs them about 2 types of skills, dark and light. Moreover, they will learn how to use light skills and show them how to summon their plana, where a suit covers his body, and while the students marvel at the sight, he informs them that since they had past lives, they should be able to use it, but they all end up struggling with the exception of Satsuki, who easily summons her plana. Satsuki begins to brag about her plana and tries to show off to Moroha and other students. Meanwhile, a guy named Jin Isurugi complains about how the class is a waste and it is all boring. Satsuki approaches him to see if he can also summon his plana. As he summons his plana, the two eventually get wrapped up in an argument, leading to a duel between the two. Both of them summon their weapons from their tags. Satsuki at first performs well, but as the fight continues, Isurugi with his might and power easily defeats Satsuki and cuts her outerwear, revealing most of her back, starts calling her weak and shouting more insulting remarks. Moroha places his sweater on Satsuki and she later runs away in shame. Moroha and Satsuki are later sitting in a cafe, but still depressed about the match. Satsuki brings up her downs and certain facts about her life and as to how she's had no friends due to moving from place to place because of metaphysical attacks. Adding also on her dreams of her past life, she tells Moroha that she no longer felt alone and later discovered that she was a savior. Once again at the school, Moroha confronts Isurugi and demands that he apologize to Satsuki, but Isurugi says he will only apologize if he can hit him once and tosses him a bunch of weapons to fight. Meanwhile, Satsuki is finishing showering when Shizuno approaches her and informs her of the situation. The two arrive at the Coliseum to witness the fight, as Isurugi has the upper hand since Moroha didn't have any plana. He thrashes Moroha majority of the fight. Moroha tries to stand his ground, but soon his sword breaks off, but he is still not giving up and keeps fighting. During the midst of the fight, Moroha gets pinned to the ground. Satsuki shouts out about him being the ultimate swordsman and the wielder of the holy sword. Moroha also regains a memory of him and Satsuki, where he is seen promising her that he would always come home to her, no matter how dangerous the battle is, when she shouts again that she will give him a kiss if he wins. He states that he remembers, which allows him to fully release his plana and summon his weapon Saratoga. Moroha then attacks Isurugi with a strong comeback and starts using his magical abilities, while the professors rush towards them to witness the fight. Isurugi gets frustrated as he practiced a lot to reach this power, and he delivers a final blow. Moroha blocks the attack and breaks his weapon, making Moroha the victor. But due to the amount of magic used, he faints and is caught by a crying Satsuki. The scene then shifts to the dream where Moroha is having a conversation with Satsuki and she is about to kiss her. Moroha wakes up to the kiss to realize it's not Satsuki but a little girl. The principal then explains that the girl was healing her through her kiss to replenish his plana. She also reveals a tied-up Satsuki who was trying to get in bed with him, so they tied her up. The principal then talks about his fight with Isurugi and reveals that Moroha is an ancient dragon, an extreme rarity in saviors to be reborn with 2 formal lives, which she elaborates by revealing that he was using a level 3 dark art during the fight as a second sense. As the principal leaves, the little girl advises Moroha to be careful as she sees trouble with women in his future. When Moroha and Satsuki get out of the infirmary, Satsuki tries to kiss him but is intervened by Shizuno, who kisses him instead. Later in the class, as Satsuki is exchanging numbers with Moroha and Shizuno, a guy comes to the class calling for Moroha and Shizuno. The girls seem to go crazy about him. The guy tells them they have been promoted to rank C on behalf of the principal's personal recommendations, and he watched the fight too because Isurugi is his younger brother. He also elaborates that rank C offers a payment scholarship that covers all of their expenses and a guaranteed position in the Order of the White Knights when they graduate. Moroha then asks about the catch. The guy then elaborates that as a captain he requires them to be in his elite team of strikers who are assigned to fight against metaphysicals. Moroha then asks him how much scholarship will he get. As the captain whispers in his ear, Moroha is shocked and ready to join. Suddenly Satsuki appears and asks to join too, but the captain refuses as she was defeated by Isurugi. Hearing this, Satsuki runs off shouting that she'll train hard. Later on, Moroha and Shizuno are introduced to the strikers, and the training begins where Shizuno tells Moroha that this team of strikers has exterminated more metaphysicals than even the Order of the White Knights. After a long day of training, Moroha and Shizuno head out where Satsuki appears to tell them she was waiting for them to go out for dinner or something. But Shizuno refuses as she and Moroha are tired after a long day of training. This makes Satsuki sad and she leaves. Moroha then advises Shizuno that she should not be that harsh on Satsuki and he wants to have dinner with her, so he runs towards her. Moroha and Satsuki then walk together for some time, and Moroha tells Satsuki that he will call her when he is free, which makes her really happy. The next day, Satsuki calls Shizuno to invite her to go shopping. She tells Shizuno that she wants to buy a present for Moroha to congratulate him on reaching rank C. After a lot of searching, they sit at a bench where Shizuno asks her to buy an ice cream for her. As soon as Satsuki purchases the ice cream, she notices the sky looking weird, and suddenly a large wave appears behind her, revealing a massive metaphysical which looks like a serpent. Satsuki and Shizuno are struck looking at it, but Satsuki sees a kid who needs help. Satsuki quickly shakes the feeling off and summons her plana to attack the metaphysical while Shizuno rescues the kid. Soon after, Shizuno joins the fight and informs the strikers for backup. They take the fight inside the mall to make as much damage to it before the backup arrives, but they are struck to see the serpent having multiple heads. One of the head attacks with a smoke field to petrify them both. As Shizuno is getting petrified, Satsuki now has no other choice but to wait for backup and stay alive. Meanwhile, Moroha reaches the strikers where the captain prohibits sending backup since the metaphysical is a dreadlock class which is too strong to fight, and sending the strikers would be suicide as it will need more than 100 men to kill it. Moroha gets upset and remembers how he lost his parents due to blood loss and he couldn't help with blood transfusion as he was a kid. Moroha then yells out how they can be the saviors if they cannot even save their friends. Meanwhile, Satsuki is about to get eaten by the 9-headed serpent, but suddenly a sword slashes to cut its tongue. It was Moroha. He continues his fight with the serpent and slashes multiple times. Shizuno then yells out to him that he has a greater power within him and he just has to remember. Then suddenly he gets a glimpse of his magic power from his other formal life which boosts his power, and he starts to write a spell. He dodges the serpent's attacks while writing the spell to complete it. As the spell completes, a ball of level 5 dark magic yin-yang is summoned which he imbues with his sword and attacks all at once at the serpent. A big flash of light appears and the serpent is dropping in pieces from the sky. Soon after, Satsuki is invited to join the reserve units of strikers as well due to her bravery while fighting the metaphysical. At that moment, Moroha tries to ask Shizuno about her other past life and how she is related to him, but she leaves by quoting some other day. The scene shifts to Shizuno and her brother where he congratulates her on being friends with the ancient dragon Moroha and taking down the dreadlock level metaphysical with him, which makes their family name proud. Soon after, Moroha Shizuno and Satsuki, sitting in a cafe, are having a conversation about the metaphysical encounter and why the principal wants all three of them to get credit when Moroha was the one who defeated it. But Moroha resumes that both of them also helped too, so it's not a big deal. Shizuno then elaborates on why it's a big deal for Moroha. She explains that the level of metaphysical he took down can only be defeated by the head six, the top saviors in the Order of the White Knights. As they were discussing, a guy with glasses comes and sits down on the next table. He orders a cup of tea, but the waiter gets confused because his tone of language is from England. Satsuki then tries to talk to him and he asks for a fine cup of tea from her too and brags about England and its luxurious tea. But she explains that this cafe is not a luxury 5-star restaurant like in England. So instead she provides him with a frou-frou drink. The tea is looking marvelous, but as he takes a sip he spits it out as it is filled with spice. Moroha tries to get a towel for him, but suddenly the time freezes. He notices that the guy is moving really fast all of a sudden, and the guy tries to punch but doesn't hit him with a strong blow of air. The guy asks Moroha why he did not dodge. Moroha replies that he knew that he was not going to hit him. Then he leaves the money on the deck and gets going, where Shizuno tells that the guy is Edward, one of the head six and the top man of British HQ. He is here to meet Moroha as he is Ancient Dragon, and the head six wants to promote him to rank S. Shizuno explains to Satsuki that the rank S do not have any freedom at all, since they have to always follow orders to fight the most gruesome metaphysicals, which may even kill them. Later, all three of them are approached by that little girl with the principal who kissed Moroha the other day. She introduces herself as Maya. Shizuno then says that the principal is Maya's older sister and Shizuno's brother is the academy's chairman of the board. Later at the Coliseum, the teacher declares a practice fight between the volunteers of first year and the second year. A guy named Kami from second year stands up as a volunteer and points out Moroha to fight. This fight is also being governed by Edward and Shizuno's brother, but Edward is rather busy in a game. Kami starts off with a really powerful level 2 spell with no hesitation, but Moroha blocks it and counters it with the same spell but more powerful, which leaves Kami defeated. After a while, Moroha goes to the principal's office to get info about Shizuno and her brother, where he is greeted by Maya. Maya then explains that Shizuno's family is very wealthy and they have been funding the entire academy for a long time. Moreover, her brother wants to raise his family's profile by using Shizuno's skills and talent. Soon after, as Moroha is lying on the ground, he gets a glimpse of his past life where a woman is beside him who claims to be the Netherworld sorceress but couldn't see her face clearly. As he wakes up, Shizuno is lying beside him. He is embarrassed, but he tries to ask if she is the Netherworld sorceress. Shizuno replies that she doesn't know what he is talking about. Meanwhile, Edward and his pa are in a car talking that the principal giving credit to the three of them is not with any evidence, and the possibility of just Moroha defeating the metaphysical may be more precise. Edward replies that he needs to see more of him to understand. The scene shifts to Shizuno, where his brother is making her meet with Moroha, who is also made into a suit for dinner. At the dinner, Shizuno's brother suggests that Moroha can become a rank S if he is to claim that he single-handedly defeated the metaphysical, and to do that the other two can lie. Shizuno tries to refuse, but her brother quiets her by saying it's best for the family. After the dinner, they both are in Shizuno's room, where everything seems off to Manoha as it was too tight, where Shizuno confesses that everything she does is always forced on her from the beginning, and that's why she tends to sleep, where everything is how she likes it. The scene shifts to Shizuno's past life, where she is a child slave and is being forced to work but is saved by the Moroha of that time. She and Moroha then go outside to get some fresh air before he leaves and spend a little time. As Moroha is sitting in the car, he notices that someone is following him, so he gets off prior to his destination and the driver gives him some food as a gift. As he walks by the park, he points out that the guy is hiding behind a tree and warns him to get going before he gets hurt, but instead the guy attacks him head on and rips his food back. So Moroha, having no option, also fights back, and while fighting he bumps into him, revealing that the guy is actually a woman. As the fight continues, she tries to make a finishing blow to Moroha. Moroha is about to get hit, but he suddenly remembers about a wind magic he used in his former life, which he uses against this mysterious woman, and she is blown away. Her clothes are ripped and she retreats. The mystery of the woman unfolds when Edward is talking on the phone with Shizuno's brother to tell a lie that Moroha is not that powerful, and he personally checks by sending her pa to battle him. Other than lying, she is badly injured. Meanwhile, Moroha reaches his room to get in another shock of seeing Maya in his room, and she confirms that she is going to be his new roommate from now on. Later on, Shizuno is in a shocked state after hearing that her brother, on behalf of Edward, wants to send her to the UK for study. She tries to refuse, but her brother involves the family name again. The next day, Moroha notices that Shizuno is missing her classes without any notice. Soon Maya runs in and says that Shizuno needs our help. Shizuno, on the other hand, is having dinner with her brother and Edward, where her brother is interrupted by a phone call for her. She takes the phone call to hear Moroha, who is inquiring about why she is agreeing to study abroad and is she being forced. He tells her not to listen to her brother, but she cries with a reply that she is bound to her family name and cannot disobey. Then she cuts the phone call. In a while, as the dinner continues, Moroha breaks through the window to stop her. He agrees in front of Edward that he is the one who defeated the metaphysical single-handedly so he can save Shizuno from leaving. Shizuno tries to stop him, but he just asks her if she wants to stay with her or not. She starts crying and replies that she will stay with him for the rest of her life. Moroha picks her up and runs off to sit in a car with Satsuki and Maya. Shizuno's brother asks Edward to get her back immediately. Suddenly, Moroha's car is under attack and he saves it from falling off the cliff. Out of nowhere, Edward and his pa appear to get back Shizuno. Edward elaborates that there is no proof of Moroha defeating the metaphysical alone, so that's why they need to take Shizuno with her. Moroha then suggests that will a proof of defeating Edward himself be enough. Edward accepts the challenge. Satsuki and Shizuno handle the pa while Moroha fights with Edward. Edward summons a big sword and starts to get lead by using his speed. Moroha tries to write a spell, but high-speed Edward knocks him to a tree. Meanwhile, Maya sets up a protective field and tells Moroha that now he can fight with all his might. Moroha now completes his spell while dodging Edward and cuts off his sword, as Moroha is about to strike for the second time. Edward whips out his second tag and summons an indestructible armor with shield. The real fight begins with Moroha trying to break the armor. But after many strikes he is only able to make a little opening in his head. He understands that it will be impossible to break his armor completely. So he thinks about Shizuno and remembers his past with her in flashback. He remembers that Shizuno was with him in his former life and he was the ruler of great lands as he used ice magic to freeze a whole empire. Moroha then gets up in the sky using gravity magic and writes a long level 8 spell, giving everyone a shock. When he completes the spell, an ice dragon strikes the ground, making a large wave of ice magic, converting all the grasslands, mountains, and animals within range to ice. Edward is laughing to see Moroha's unimaginable power till he gets hit by the ice and freezes. Moroha and the others are at the principal's place where Moroha reveals that he didn't kill Edward. He just freezed him to ice. After a while, Edward himself visits them and talks to Moroha and Shizuno. He agrees that Moroha won fair and square and he comes in peace with them and will not bother them anymore. Moreover, he questions Moroha. Why did he not dodge at the cafe when he was about to punch him? Moroha replies that he was sure from his plana that Edward is not going to hit him. Edward, listening to the reply, laughs it off and officially declares Moroha as rank S on behalf of British HQ. 1 month passes after the event and the scene shifts to Strikers, where the captain announces that the summer camp training of this year is going to be on a small island in Yamagachi and they are going to train at the beach while keeping the area safe. Later, Satsuki and the others go out shopping for the summer camp at the beach. Moroha is also stopping by where he stumbles upon Momo, who is also shopping for the beach. She embarrasses herself as Moroha tries to help her shop and follows her everywhere. Soon after, the principal is casting a spell to transport everyone to the island. Maya then reveals to Moroha that this spell is called Gate and the principal can use it once in a day because it drains plenty of plana. The spell makes a magic circle and in the blink of an eye, everyone is at the beach. As the day begins, everyone is having fun at the beach, teasing each other and playing games with each other. Satsuki and Momo get into a moment where they argue and Satsuki challenges Momo to a race to see who is better. Momo, being the fastest runner of the Strikers, accepts the request and the race commences. Satsuki loses the first time and asks for a rematch where she loses again and again and again. Until multiple losses she gives up. Suddenly, Moroha receives a call from Edward to inform him about the meeting the Head Six are going to have about his endorsement to rank S, and the host is the head of Russian HQ called the Russian Terror, because she is the strongest of the Head Six. In the night, Shizuno and Maya are following Moroha and Satsuki to check what they are up to, whereas Satsuki is asking Moroha to train her running skills because she wants to beat Momo. Moroha rejects the idea of training because running is Momo's plana skill and she excels at it greatly. Satsuki cannot beat her even after years of training. Moroha advises her to train her other skills, but Satsuki is steadfast on it because she wants to be with Moroha all the time, not like her previous life where she was always left behind by Moroha since he was always going on his mission. Looking at a sad Satsuki, Moroha agrees to train her at night, but only to make her strong and not for the reason of beating Momo. The scene shifts to the principal and the head of Japan HQ, Andu, who is leaving for the meeting of the Head Six, and he asks the principal to protect the country when he is not available since all the rank are in her academy, the Strikers. Meanwhile, the Strikers are having a feast in the evening where Satsuki is cooking them mouth-watering BBQ and also teaching Momo about cooking. At night, Satsuki is trying to run on water as far as she can as instructed by Moroha. He advises her not to take a burden and take a deep breath. Meanwhile, spying Maya and Shizuno leave as there is nothing special going on and just the training. Satsuki suspects something far away in the water but ignores it, thinking she must be imagining stuff. After that, the Strikers spend their night playing with fireworks and having fun. As Moroha is going back to his room, Shizuno shows up in a Japanese dress. She complains to him about not spending enough time with her and wants him to have at least this moment with her. So Moroha and Shizuno sit and talk with each other about their families and how Shizuno wants to meet Moroha's uncle and aunt. Looking at the moon and the sparkling fireworks, they spend their time and enjoy the peaceful night. The scene shifts to the Head 6 meeting where Edward proceeds with the meeting by calling out votes for Moroha's rank S promotion. Only Japan HQ head Andu votes a yes and the remaining heads vote a no because of no evidence supporting the fact that Moroha defeated the serpent metaphysical. Andu supports the yes vote by saying that Moroha was so efficient in defeating the dreadlock level metaphysical that no one was able to record it, but the Russian terror Vasilisa is not satisfied. Even Edward tries to back up Moroha by supporting the fact that he himself observed him in a fight, but as he is completing his statement, Andu suddenly feels a striking pain in his chest. While in pain, he says that there's a new metaphysical and the alert message pops out on the table. Meanwhile, a helicopter is viewing the monster for the coverage of news and relevant information. The metaphysical is certainly massive in size and with a horrific look. The strikers are also viewing the helicopter's broadcast. The captain explains the size of the metaphysical to be 300 meters, which is even bigger than the Dreadlock class, and they are calling it the Fortress class because they have never seen a metaphysical like this before. The map is pointing that the metaphysical is going towards the island the strikers are patrolling at. The captain also says that the Japanese HQ is ordering them to withdraw because the metaphysical is too strong for them to handle and they are to evacuate the area of the residence immediately. During the conversation, all of a sudden the screen gets all fuzzy as the broadcasting helicopter is getting attacked by a swarm of bugs and gets destroyed. The captain orders everyone to leave with the locals that are already getting on board for their departure on the ships. Back to the meeting where the Russian terror Vasilisa gives a threat to Andu to not to leave and fight the metaphysical because she wants to see Moroha fight it to test if he deserves the rank S as Andu tries to leave. One of the other head hits him with a sleeping spell. Edward now only hopes for Moroha to work something out. The ships for evacuation leave the island, but Moroha, Satsuki, Shizuno and Maya decide to stay behind to fight the metaphysical. Soon the captain also appears because he doesn't want to run away. He says that he now acts as no captain but a savior and he is obliged to his duty. Very soon the rest of the strikers also appear because they also don't want to go as their pride won't let them. The captain tries to make them go back, but they are steadfast on their commitment. The strikers then raise their swords and give their vows to fight. As the metaphysical approaches, the captain suggests that they are going to use the siren from the harbor to lure it towards them. Since it is attracted to sounds, that's why it destroyed the broadcasting helicopter. Next, the right side of the monster is to be attacked by one team and the left side is his responsibility, while Moroha will wait in the front for a full-on frontal attack. He also suggests that Momo will act as a transmission since she can run really fast. The sirens get into play, but as soon as the monster moves towards the harbor, the waves hit the electricity poles, causing the sirens to stop. The metaphysical also stops as it doesn't hear any sound, which greatly impacts the captain's attack strategy. Out of nowhere, Kami shows up and starts to shoot fireworks to lure the metaphysical towards it. The metaphysical begins to move again towards Kami as he runs while shooting the fireworks. The left side team now attacks it with all of their long-distance airborne attacks like ice magic, lightning, inferno, etc., hitting it simultaneously, which leads to breaking one of its legs. The metaphysical then generates bugs out of its skin to defend from the left side. As soon as the metaphysical reaches the captain, he summons his sword and attacks while remembering his training with Moro. The captain's attack makes a hole inside the leg and completely destroys it. Now from the front, Moroha plays music from his phone connected to a big sound system, making the metaphysical move faster towards him. Moroha summons Saltiga and rushes towards the metaphysical to attack. Jumps high to write a spell called Yin Yang. Imbues it with the sword and slashes to cut one of its arms in one strike. It attacks with the second arm, but Moroha keeps on blocking it. Meanwhile, the other team is busy fighting the bugs. Satsuki and Yuzuki take down a number of them, and Yuzuki changes his bow to a lance for close combat. Sophia also takes down a large number, while the vice captain Takiko is busy writing spells one after the other. For the next blow, the captain continues his attack and cuts the metaphysical's tail off. While the captain is standing on top of the metaphysical, Momo appears and reports about how everything is going. As they are talking, the metaphysical makes laughing sounds, and suddenly a large number of heads begin to appear on its body, proving that it's a multi-headed metaphysical. The captain orders Momo to inform everyone to withdraw quickly, and they both jump off. The heads on the metaphysical begin to suck air inside them and soon release a big sound wave. The sound wave is so strong that it makes everyone lose their focus and cover their ears. Even Moroha is struggling. As the sound wave ends, everyone is weakened by it, and only Satsuki is holding her own. She gets up and tries to help Shizuno, but more and more bugs start to appear. Momo reaches her to inform that everyone needs to fall back. Satsuki now defends everyone and refuses to run and fights on her own with the bugs and shouts. Sensing this, the metaphysical begins to turn towards her location. Moroha is then approached by Momo. She informs him about how Satsuki is fighting all on her own and the metaphysical is trying to move towards her. Moroha asks Momo to get everyone to safety as he wants to make an end to this metaphysical all on his own before it reaches Satsuki. Moroha then jumps on the metaphysical and thinks of a way to defeat it. He suddenly is struck by his previous life glimpse where he used a magic circle. He stabs his sword inside the rocky skin of the metaphysical and starts to run to draw a magic circle. Momo starts to help him by killing the bugs that try to get in his way. Meanwhile, the others are getting into a barrier as Satsuki fights with the bugs. Satsuki is getting tired, but as soon as Moroha yells to tell her that she is done with her part and he can take care of the rest, she falls down. Momo rushes towards her and gets her into the barrier. The metaphysical is beginning to launch another sound wave attack. Noticing this, Moroha moves quickly before it happens and transfers his plana into the magic circle. The magic circle emits rays of light, and after a massive explosion, the metaphysical gets wiped off of the map. Looking at this, the head six immediately agree upon promoting Moroha to rank S, leaving the Russian terror resentful. Before anything, Edward proposes a probation period till his graduation, that's 3 years. Until then he is to be treated as a student. Andu agrees upon that because he will probably serve under him anyways. Everything seems to be getting back to normal as Satsuki and Shizuno fight over Moroha. Meanwhile, the Russian terror gives instructions to an assassin to get rid of a rank S in Japan, that is Moroha. After some days, at the academy, Moroha opens his locker and a love letter falls out which says, "I like you and I'll be waiting behind the stadium 1." Moroha approaches the girl. He recognizes that she is the Russian exchange student, but why would she give him a love letter? When she explains that her name is Elina, she is falling in love with him at first sight. But Moroha asks how is that even possible because she gave the letter first and now she's falling in love with him, isn't that the other way around? Elina elaborates that her sources said that this is how it's done, or maybe it's wrong and she confused herself. Anyways, Moroha rejects her as he doesn't understand the situation and she gets all depressed, quoting that she wants to die now. Moroha then suggests that they are going to be friends for now. Later in the class, Elina gets in and everybody thinks that she is pretty and not scary like the rest of the Russians. Elina introduces herself by writing her name on the whiteboard. As the teacher points her to the seat, Satsuki raises her hand and asks Elina about her surname. She replies that she doesn't have a real surname because she doesn't have any parents. The surname she is using is the name of her facility where she was trained since childhood. After that, Shizuno stands up and asks what is her motive to come here. Abduction, investigation, or assassination? To which she replies that her objective is to make Moroha her boyfriend and she already made a confession to him. Listening to this, everyone's in shock and this makes Moroha embarrassed. Satsuki runs to Elina and shouts at her that she cannot do such a thing without her permission as she is her sister. Elina and Satsuki have an argument with Moroha and after a while Shizuno joins too. She asks Elina what she likes about Moroha. She replies that it is love at first sight. Elina counters the question to Shizuno and she replies that she likes everything about Moroha. The argument goes on and until the whole class takes an interest, leaving Moroha more embarrassed. At the training camp where Yuzuki and Sophia are having a spar, Yuzuki, having the ability to change his weapon to multiple types, converts it to a changed sword then to a simple sword, but his attack doesn't land a lot of punches. Sophia's is using her ability of imprintable plana, making her indestructible. Moroha and everyone else are watching their sparring. Momo, being shy, asks Moroha about the news roaming about Elina confessing her love to him. Moroha inquires about her knowing about that. Maya reveals that everyone at the academy knows about it. The principal also takes part in the conversation by laughing it off and saying that differences of nation, race, and ethnicity don't matter when you're young. Meanwhile, Yuzuki set a trap of sharp threads around Sophia. Sophia boosts her plana, passes right through them, but her clothes get cut off. Later in the evening, Moroha and the others are leaving as Elina approaches them. She was waiting for Moroha. As Satsuki and Shizuno inquire about her weight, she replies that she wants to go on a date with Moroha tomorrow. Satsuki, being all jealous, doesn't give permission, but with the exception that all three of them go together. Elina agrees on the terms, but Shizuno leaves as she is busy for tomorrow and will not go with them. The next day, as Moroha is waiting for them, Elina joins him wearing cat ears and tail with her dress. She acts all cute in front of him. The people around also gather up. Moroha points out that the cat's ear looks weird. That's why everyone is looking. Elina removes the cat ears and gets all depressed and embarrassed. She says that she studied Japanese culture from a reputable source and thought that they love cat ears and being all cute. As Moroha tries to cheer her up, he gets a call from Satsuki that she won't be able to join them as she is stuck with Sophia at the church cooking food for charity. And she won't be able to leave as everyone is loving the food cooked by her. Elina and Moroha then go on with their date, walking while Elina holds Moroha's hand tightly. Elina sees a McDonald's and stops to say she never tried one. Moroha asks if she wants to try and takes her in. She takes the first bite of the burger and eats more as she likes it a lot. Moroha inquiries that there are McDonald's in Russia and how come she never tried it before. She replies that she was always busy with training and never had time. Moroha then asks how are the schools like in Russia. She replies that there are no schools in Russia. All of the saviors are trained military style since birth and they get no time for anything else. Moroha suggests she should hang out with him more and he wants her to meet all his other friends. Elina asks him why he is trusting her and doesn't he suspect that she could be an assassin? To which he replies that it depends on if she wants to kill her or not. Elina says that he reminds me of a person she met a long time ago, the head of the British HQ, Edward. Meanwhile, Shizuno calls the pa of Edward Angela and inquires about the details regarding Elina's background. She tells Angela that her age is around 15 and her name is Elina Arshevina. Angela in a shocked state mentions that Elina is the same girl that attacked Edward a long time ago and she is called the Maynator for her assassin reputation. Moroha and Elina go to the movies where Elina sits on top of him and being uncomfortable he moves her to the next seat. Back to the date where Moroha and Elina take pictures at the photo booth and then Moroha wins her a toy from the claw machine. After that they go to the movies where Elina sits on top of Moroha and he puts her on the next seat whereas Elina grabs his hand. Later they go to a park where Moroha gets a drink for Elina and he sits to notice a kid playing with his father. He says that he used to play like this with his uncle. Elina asks your uncle, but why not your father? Then he elaborates that his parents died when he was young so after that he lived with his uncle and aunt. And he is glad to have them as family just like Elina has her brother. He then tells Elina that he would like to meet her younger brother someday to which Elina replies that wants to meet his uncle and aunt too. In the night a raven visits Elina at the window. The raven is a man named Kondrat who is using a raven's body. Kondrat is happy with how the things are going with Moroha and Elina is making him trust her. Elina says that Moroha's weakness is his friends and family so she needs to become her weakness. Kondrat says that if she is able to take down Moroha then he will bring in a good word to Russian Terror to let her spend time with his younger brother. The next day at the academy, Elina finds a letter that falls from her locker. In the next scene Elina appears before Shizuno asking about the letter she wrote to her. Shizuno elaborates that the letter is not a love letter but a challenge to a fight. She knows that Elina is the Maynator, the trump card of the Russian Terror. That's why she can't let her be near Moroha anymore. Shizuno summons her staff, writes a freezing spell and starts to attack Elina. Elina at first dodges but is eventually hit by the spell. Soon she regains herself and dodges. After dodging another one, Elina appears behind Shizuno and throws a knife at her but her staff changes into an ice dragon to block the knife. The dragon then attacks Elina, blows her away and blasts on her. As Elina is on the ground Shizuno starts to write another spell. Elina, having no other choice, summons her sword that is a black sword imbued with purple prana. As soon as Shizuno blasts her spell towards her she absorbs the spell with just one flick of her sword. The sword absorbs prana which can be very problematic for Shizuno. As Elina rushes towards Shizuno, she launches a number of spells one after the other but each one gets absorbed. Even the ice dragon gets slashed back to its original state as a staff. Elina then points her sword towards Shizuno and threatens her that she will mark her face with a scar if she gets a single word about this fight tomorrow. Shizuno with confidence replies that even if there is a scar on her face, Moroha will not stop loving her. Elina shivers to hear the reply as a teacher comes running towards the commotion and she runs off in the woods. Next day at the academy, Meyer is having a conversation with Moroha and Satsuki that Shizuno and Elina both are off today. Moroha visits Shizuno who has her one leg in a bandage. Shizuno then reveals that Elina is an assassin called the Maynator and she is here to assassinate him. Moroha inquires how she knows about it. Then Shizuno reveals that last night she was fighting her to confirm her suspicions. Moroha gets all frustrated and hugs her. He is glad that she is safe but scolds her that something could have happened to her. Moroha tells her that even if she is an assassin she has something good inside her. Meanwhile Elina is in pain due to the injury she got from the fight with Shizuno. She gets a dream about the brother she is following but her face is covered. As she wakes up, Kondrat, in the form of a cat, is telling her that Moroha knows about her secret and she needs to end it quickly. Elina then drops him by the door. Sue, Moroha and Satsuki come to visit her. And like nothing happened, Moroha starts to heal her knee and Satsuki cooks for her exactly like how friends act. At night Elina gets a nightmare and she wakes up to see Moroha holding her hand. Then on the next day Maya comes over to clean her up. The next day Momo comes over and cooks for her. The days pass by and one day Sophia comes and talks to her. She invites her to live in Japan as a student in the academy like how she is from the USA. She says that Elina can make a lot of friends but she keeps on thinking about his brother. Soon Moroha enters and Elina stands up and tells her that she wants to go on another date the next break. The scene shifts to the day where Elina and Moroha are traveling on a bus. Shizuno calls Satsuki about Moroha. She replies that Elina and Moroha went on a date. Moroha and Elina are walking in the park where Elina reveals her Plana uniform and summons her Plana. She begins to rush towards Moroha to kill him. Meanwhile, Satsuki and Shizuno appear at the entrance where Sophia stops them to interfere. Sophia is doing so because USHQ wants Moroha to kill the Mainator. Satsuki holds her off as Shizuno goes in. Elina attacks rapidly against Moroha. Moroha fights back with spells, but his Plana keeps on getting low because her sword was absorbing it. Moroha boosts his Plana to attack, but even from a distance the sword absorbs it away. As the fight continues, Moroha gets in a difficult situation as he is losing his Plana rapidly. He then remembers his past life where he used basic sword techniques with no Plana to fight a big army. Moroha uses the same technique to land a slash. On the other hand, Sophia's weapon is getting rusty as her Plana is too strong to be handled by the weapon itself. She attacks Satsuki and Satsuki keeps on dodging it until her sword breaks, let alone she uses her hand to block the attack. This impact destroys Sophia's weapon and she gives up. Back to Moroha and Elina. Elina is getting beat up by Moroha and she is on her knees where Moroha tells her that he wants to save her brother and wants her to join him. Soon Shizuno appears and tells Elina that she doesn't even have a brother because she was alone when she was abandoned on the snowy night. Elina is not believing her, but then she asks for his brother's name and his age. Elina is struck as she is not able to remember. Kandrat appears and reveals that Shizuno is telling the truth as he is the one who implanted this figment of reality in her brain about her brother, and now it's broken. This leaves Elina all shocked and unable to process. Kandrat takes control of her body and starts to attack Moroha. Kandrat is trying with all his might to kill him, but Moroha suddenly makes a breakthrough and boosts his Plana to an infinite amount. Kandrat tries to absorb the Plana with his sword, but it breaks due to excess Plana. And with one spell strike, Kandrat separates from Elina's body. Moroha tells Elina that he will be the family she wants. Meanwhile, Kandrat begs for his life to the Russian terror, but due to his failure, she destroys him. The next day, Elina tries to leave the country, but Moroha stops her and applies a sleeping spell. While holding her, he calls Edward to tell that he is starting a war with the Russian terror, so back him up. Moroha's first target is the of Vladivostok, Russia. He stops his car and asks for the location of the Russian terror, but he refuses and attacks Moroha. Moroha jumps to the high point of the bridge and writes a spell which strikes thunder from the sky towards him, leaving him to the ground. Angela tells Moroha to finish him off, but he says that he has no plan for killing anyone, and he is going to take down every branch in Russia to find her. Moroha stabs the chief with the tip of his sword just to strike fear in him and leave. Angela and Moroha travel by the train to travel to the next location for another chief and leave this one to drive off to the Russian terror. The injured chief reaches a place where the Russian terror talks to him through a magic mirror. He delivers the details about how he lost to Moroha and his plan of waging a war against her and attacking every branch. The Russian terror, after getting the info, strikes the chief with a heavy lightning spell and kills him. The Russian terror, in her confidence, tells her subordinates not to send back up to any branch and let Moroha come to her. Moroha and Angela keep on going to each branch one by one and defeating all of them until they reach Krasnoyarsk. They walk out of the station with their luggage where they feel that someone is following them. Moroha says that there are 8 people. Moroha then jumps and runs off to the forest so that the followers reach him there. Moroha gets attacked by one of them and he says that Moroha should leave the country for everyone's sake. Then a pair of twins attack him. The twins create their doubles, but still Moroha blocks them. A fire spell comes straight at them, so he saves the twin by pushing them away. Then he starts to neutralize them one by one till he finds one of them who asks him why he saved the twins, so he replies that he wants everyone to live. Then with the flick he also makes her sleep. The last one is fighting off against Angela, but he keeps a mirror in the back from which the Russian terror writes a spell. As the spell is about to hit, Moroha pushes Angela away and gets struck by a massive thunder strike. The scene shifts to Moroha's nightmare where a dragon is attacking Satsuki and Shizuno. As he wakes up, Angela is sleeping beside him. As Angela wakes up, she is all embarrassed, but then she explains that the time the thunder spell struck Moroha, he got badly injured, so she carried him on her back to a safe place, and they found an abandoned house. She further explains that to heal him she had to sleep with him to make her special healing skill work. Moroha thanks her for the help. Meanwhile, the same girl comes in, who Moroha made unconscious by a flick the previous night. She elaborates that she is the owner of the house. Her name is Katia and she is the leader of this district branch. She doesn't want to fight Moroha because she knows Moroha is a good guy and doesn't want to kill anyone. Instead, she asks for a favor to help save one of her friend named Yuli from the hold of Russian terror. Later in the train, she explains that the Russian terror takes in the savior kids who don't have a family and brainwash them to be her bodyguards. Katia says they'll find Yuli where the Russian terror is, therefore she is going to take them there. As they reach the stop, Moroha again, with a flick, makes her unconscious so that she doesn't join them or get in any harm. Moroha and Angela walk together and Moroha also tells Angela to not to interfere as he doesn't want her to be in any harm as well. whereas the Russian terror is sending the little guy from before for execution as he failed the mission. She then gets out to her terrace to see to a distance where Moroha is standing and ready to fight. She begins to write a level 13 thunder spell. The clouds join up and the thunder strikes the ground while summoning a large number of beasts and monsters made of thunder. Moroha is now facing hundreds of thunder beasts by himself and begins to cut them off one by one. The Russian terror, while having a conversation with her subordinates, says that this spell took down a dreadlock class in seconds but is taking too much time against Moroha. Moroha keeps on getting rid of them one by one. Suddenly, a number of brainwashed bodyguards of the Russian terror attack Moroha. Moroha is now fighting them as well while protecting them from the thunder beasts. He gets under a gravity spell from Yuli and is unable to move. The bodyguards and the beast are about to attack, but Angela and Katia appear to save him. Satsuki, Shizuno, and Elina also get there through a teleporting gate to back him up. Elina tries to convince the bodyguards that they have been brainwashed like how she was, and she is perfectly in her senses with Moroha. Katia also tries to talk through Yuli, but then Elina cuts the necklace off and she remembers everything. Yuli, back to her senses, orders every other bodyguard to support Moroha. Now Moroha and his friends, including the bodyguards, are up against the Russian terror. Each one of them takes down a number of beasts. Meanwhile, the Russian terror starts to sing a song. And as she sings, the raging thunder from the clouds creates a mountain-sized warrior made of thunder. Yuli and Shizuno write a spell, and to top it off, Moroha uses his yin-yang spell merged with it, but the spell hits to nothing. Not even a single scratch on the thunder warrior. The warrior launches a thunder blast attack against them, but they merely dodge the massive blast. They back up for a protection spell, but that will not work against the massive blast. Moroha then remembers his past life and writes a long level 13 spell and punches the spell into the ground. The ground bursts with large waves of water scattering around, covering the land. Moroha then taps with his foot and large tentacles of water move towards the warrior to wrap it up. The warrior is crushed and destroyed into pieces. The Russian terror loses her hope and her subordinates run off as they become afraid of Moroha. Moroha appears before her and she uses another spell, but Moroha repels it instantly. The Russian is now pleading for mercy from Moroha and begs for her life. Moroha, out of anger, orders her not to kill anyone anymore and leaves her shut. The principal receives a call that Moroha won the war and he will be coming back, but he is going to stay the night and use the teleportation gate the next day. Maya gets all sad as she is waiting for him and sleeping alone in their room for a long time. And now she has to wait another day. Moroha and the others enjoy a steam bath together where Satsuki and Elina get into an argument about who is going to be the younger sister of Moroha. They challenge each other to a game to see who stays the longest in the hot steam as they pour water into the coals. The pouring of water into coals produces more steam. As a result, the heat increases. Everyone starts to leave the steam bath one by one because it is getting too hot. In the end, Satsuki and Elina perform exercises to see who lasts while Moroha and Shizuno are spectators. Satsuki and Elina then settle things with arm wrestling, in which Satsuki wins. At night, Moroha shares to Shizuno about the dream he had about a dragon attacking Satsuki and her in his past lives, but he is unable to remember it. Shizuno predicts that it may be directed to a future event. Meanwhile, Edward and Andu are talking about Moroha's triumphant win against the Russian terror. Andu suddenly feels a pain that another metaphysical is coming. Moroha and others are about to leave through the teleportation gate, but he receives a call from Andu. As everyone else reaches Japan, Meyer is waiting for Moroha, but he is not there. Satsuki reveals that he is staying behind for another day to fight against a metaphysical. Moroha is with Katia and Yuli to fight a metaphysical battle since the Russian terror is not available. Meyer is feeling sad as he is waiting for Moroha, but to support her, Satsuki suggests sleeping with her at night. Meanwhile, Edward, on a call with Angela, mentions that Andu's condition is getting worse and there may be something really bad coming. In the night, Meyer is being accompanied by Satsuki as everyone else also join them one after the other. Even Angela is there too. To make it more fun, they start a pillow fight. The pillow fight goes on as they go to sleep. The next day, Andu wakes up at the hospital and tells Edward that the ancient dragon is coming. A portal in the sky opens up and a dragon metaphysical comes out down the city. The strikers get ready for the battle as the city is being evacuated. The rest of the students are staying inside the academy for safety while the principal and Maya are running to a distance to prepare a transportation gate for Moroha. Angela also joins the strikers to fight. The strikers plan to ambush the dragon and surround it, but the dragon figures it out, flies high. It comes back throwing fire blasts at them. While running, Satsuki trips and falls down. The dragon is about to attack her but is saved by the rest of the strikers. The strikers attack with a collection of spells added, but the dragon cancels them out and rewrites them in his eyes and attacks back with a big one. Meanwhile, Moroha is looking at the situation on the broadcast and he suddenly remembers about the dragon destroying Satsuki and Shizuno in the past. He mentions that the dragon has been following him in every era to destroy what's dear to him. The strikers are struggling hard against the dragon because of its boosted powers and intelligence unlike any other metaphysical. The principal, on the other hand, is ready to cast the transportation gate, but she is waiting for it to be noon. As soon as the clock strikes 12, she begins to write the spell. The captain tries to fight the dragon from its back but falls off, and the vice captain rushes in front of him on time to protect him. Satsuki, on the other hand, is in the sight of the dragon and is attacked by it. Momo rushes to save her. She pushes her away but gets herself knocked down by the dragon's attack. The fire reaches a building which is about to fall down on Maya, but the principal leaves the spell to save her, getting herself stuck under the debris. She tells Maya to complete the spell on her behalf as she is not able to and lends her magic. Maya wears the principal's cap and begins to rewrite the spell. The dragon tries to attack Maya, but Edward appears on time and blocks the attack. Under the protection of Edward, Maya completes the spell for the transportation gate. Moroha transports through the gate, but there is anger and frustration on his face. As the dragon tries to attack Satsuki, Moroha deflects the attack to save her. He orders everyone to fall back and not interfere in any circumstances, especially Satsuki and Shizuno, as he will take the dragon on by himself. He writes a spell to use yin-yang, but the strike is cancelled by the dragon. Shizuno tells him that it can cancel and counter any spell we throw at it. So Moroha stops using any spells and begins to use just his plana against it. The dragon then uses the sound wave attack, the one that the fortress level metaphysical used, and then the dragon summons the bugs like that too. So everyone assumes that the dragon has all the powers of previous metaphysicals they fought. As Moroha is busy fighting the bugs it summons, the dragon appears behind Satsuki and Shizuno and petrifies them to stone. Moroha shouts out in anger, gets all frustrated and fills himself with hatred as everything that happened in his past lives is happening again. Out of pure hate, he attacks the dragon with no control over himself and writes a spell on its skin so that it does not cancel or counter it. But the spell is too strong even for the dragon and can destroy the whole city. Moroha is about to deploy it, but Satsuki and Shizuno get themselves unpetrified and appear beside him in the plana of their formal life. Seeing this, Moroha gets back to his senses. Moroha's plana also changes into half and half part of each of his formal lives. Seeing Moroha on their side, the strikers get back up and begin to attack the dragon to support him. As Moroha, Satsuki, and Shizuno are getting closer to the dragon, each and every one of their friends are making way for them. The Russian saviors are there as well. As the dragon tries to counter their spell, Angela throws a knife in the dragon's eye and now it's unable to cancel or counter the spell. Moroha writes an ultimate yin-yang, and he, together with Satsuki and Shizuno, make a massive strike towards the dragon. And with a flash of light, the dragon is destroyed. Andu wakes up at the hospital, meaning that everything is getting back to normal. Moroha and the others see off Edward and Angela at the airport. The only thing missing is the academy, which got destroyed during the dragon's rampage. Moroha, Satsuki, and Shizuno are walking towards the academy, where Moroha tells Shizuno that he now remembers that she was her wife in his former life. Shizuno asks him to keep it a secret and they try to kiss each other, but Satsuki rushes towards them and they both kiss on his cheek. At the academy, everyone is waiting for them and they put on a party together to greet Moroha. The principal says that even if the academy is destroyed, we have our students, and gives a round of applause to them in hopes for the best future for the academy. And the saviors. The story ends with Moroha, Satsuki, Shizuno, Elina, and Maya running towards him to give a warm hug. Thanks for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more recaps like these.